Hello. Okay. Welcome to the masterclass. I'm going to let everybody kind of roll in here for a second. Kelsey, I see you here. I will add you to the stage here in a minute. Okay. So as we kind of get rolling, I would love for you guys to drop in the comments where you're from, and where you're watching this from tonight. Also, if you plan to apply to PA school in 2025, if this is your first time, or if you are reapplying. So while you guys are doing that, I always love to see where people are from. Typically, it's kind of all over the country, which is super fun. Okay, so I'm Michelle Neske, otherwise known as the Posh PA, PA school admissions expert. And I am so excited to host this masterclass for you tonight and have a special guest with us to really kind of break down what I believe are the four most important things you have to overcome to be able to gain acceptance in PA school as you are kind of going through this process and sort of crack the code, to PA school acceptance. And so I'm so thankful that I have Kelsey joining my Posh PA team, but also to have her here tonight because she is an admissions director at a PA program. So you're going to get some access to ask questions to an admissions director. I'm sure we'll cover sort of the most commonly asked questions, like what are you most looking for in an applicant and all of those fun things. Okay, we have so many people rolling in right now. We've got San Diego, Minnesota, Maryland, first-time applicants, Mississippi, Virginia, St. Louis, Chicago, Miami, Charleston. Hey, Noemi, I'm here. Connecticut, Florida, Arizona, Miami. I love it. Idaho. All right. Arizona. This is awesome. I love it. I'm so excited. Okay. Ooh, Indianapolis, Fort Lauderdale. All right, listen, y'all. I'm gonna try to have you hold your questions till the end and then drop them, in the comment box. I have some slides. I want to be mindful of everyone's time, but we will definitely get to as many questions as time allows today. Okay, we got Louisiana, lots of Florida, Louisiana, Chicago. All right, I love it. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to get started. I'm going to bring Kelsey here to the stage. I'll give her a chance to introduce herself here shortly. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I've got some slides, and there's a little bit of time, Kelsey, where I'll stop and give a little bit about my background, and you can give a little bit about your background, and I think it will really help everybody understand where we're coming from today. Sound good? Okay. So also just a couple housekeeping things. You will get the recording after, if you registered for this and you got your emails, the recording will be sent to you after the event. Usually I think it's like 2 hours after. Stay till the end because I have a really special discount code for something that I'm going to be talking to you about this whole time, sort of going through. And lastly, what is the other question I always get? Is the recording? Yeah, I think that's it. So recording, make sure you stay till the end, and we'll answer all the questions sort of at the end as well. Okay, here we go. See if this works. Yes. And I want to share it, but I also want to make sure we're on there, and we are. Okay, perfect. All right, so here we are. I'm going to go to present mode. All right, so where'd y'all go? There you are. Okay. All right, so let's get started here. So welcome. This is Crack the Code to PA School Admission. I'm Michelle Neske. You have Kelsey Richards here. We are both PAs. These are some of the very first students I helped get into PA school in 2019, 5 years ago. Many of them are practicing well into their practice now, but just showing you, what is possible for you. your picture could be up here just like any of these people. So I'm really excited to kind of share this information with you today. All right. So you're here today, so I really, really hope you know what a PA is, okay? But if you don't, this is the best definition of a PA. This is something that a lot of people are going to ask you, okay? Your friends and family, your, people who you might need to work with in the future. Patients are going to ask you this question, okay? So it's really important to be able to describe what a PA is and does to someone. Physician associate, I'm going to address this right off the bat. Our name has changed to physician associate. However, it has not been passed in a law in every state. So we have been encouraged by the American Academy of PAs, which is our national organization, to use physician assistant until our state in which you practice in accepts the physician associate title. Now, that's, if you're a practicing PA, if you are applying to PA school, I think it's completely fine to use physician associate at this point in your essays or whatever. Whether you use physician assistant or associate, it really doesn't matter. More importantly is that you're using PA in your essays and making sure that's clear. But the definition, what is a PA? It's a certified. So I always say to patients and I always say to students who I work with, that a PA is a nationally certified licensed medical professional that can diagnose, treat, perform exams, write prescriptions, and perform procedures in a collaboration with a physician. That is the best definition of what a PA is. So whether you are asked that on an interview or by your parents, you should be able to have that roll right off your tongue, okay? That first paragraph. And yes, PAs can work in various specialties such as family medicine, emergency medicine, surgery, psychiatry. And to become a PA, you have to complete a rigorous PA educational program and pass a national certification exam. Okay, so those are some just cookie cutter questions. You want those answers like in your back pocket, okay, for everyone that's going to ask you about this moving forward. All right, so why PA? I know all of us have a very different YPA. I'll give you a little bit about my background, but most people want to become PAs because it offers flexibility, autonomy, meaningful patient interactions, and let's be honest, a competitive salary, right? PA programs provide a rigorous medical education, which is generalized so that you are able to move specialties if you want to throughout your career, and diverse clinical experiences. So, and that's sort of the cookie cutter of why a lot of people want to become a PA. And so if you work with us, or if you join my admissions accelerator program, or you work with us in any of our services, I really push you, and we really push you to go beyond this on why you want to be a PA, because everyone wants to be a PA because you can change specialties and it's shorter time to practice and you can get out there and start earning income, right? So what are some other things and deeper why you want to be a PA and why you want to impact people? So with that being said, I'm going to give a little bit about my background, and then I'll let Kelsey give a little bit about hers because I'm sure they're different, just to give you an idea and reassure you that there are all different types of applicants out there and on this call. So you cannot be comparing yourself to, someone from Indianapolis can't be comparing themselves to somebody in Miami. They have totally different stories and totally different backgrounds. So very briefly, I went to the university. Well, I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, whoop, whoop. And I was very active in high school. I played a lot of sports, and I really thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. I have an older sister who is now in business. I have two parents who are in education. Nobody in my family was medical, zero. So I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. I applied to all these physical therapy programs, but I knew in the back of my mind I might change my mind. So I wound up going to the University of Connecticut, which offered me a lot of different options had I changed my mind. Had a great experience there. Wound up being a genetics major. So I have a degree in genetics and a minor in molecular and cell biology. And I graduated there and got a job in Boston. So I was working at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston. I was working in a lab. So my degree was very lab based. Okay. So I was working in a lab. I was there for about a year. And I was like, I'm not really that good at this I had like killed off some incubators full of cells. But I loved who I was working with, the physician who was running the lab. And I just felt like it really wasn't the right fit for me long term. So I asked this physician if I could go to his clinic one day. And I went and spent one day in the clinic with him. And I said, you know what? I'm on the wrong side of medicine. And I looked at what my options were at that time, right? I had already graduated college. I had, a degree. I was working a job. And, I had never even really heard of the PA profession. I knew that I really didn't want to be an NP, but I was willing to kind of consider that route. I considered going to med school, kind of like most people do. But my parents were like, hey, why don't you talk to so-and-so? She was one of their best friend's daughters who became a PA. So I talked to her. And literally after that phone conversation, I was like, at that time it was like dial up, but I was like on the World Wide Web, like trying to research PA programs and what I needed to do. And sure enough, I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. So I had to go back and take classes like many of you. I had to work 2 jobs like many of you. I had to, get patient care hours just like you. And I had to do this with zero guidance. Okay. My parents like, what are you doing? You're like a college graduate now, like going in reverse. Like, what is happening? And I'm like, trust me, it's going to be good. So anyway, I wound up ultimately getting accepted to the Yale Physician Associate Program. I graduated from there in 2005. And since then have been working clinically. The majority of the almost 20 years I've been a PA is, wow, it is 20 years this year. Woo! 17 of those years have been in adult medical oncology. So I work with adults who are receiving some kind of treatments for cancers or hematological conditions. That's been super fulfilling. But in 2019, I had my daughter and I wanted a little bit more flexibility with my schedule. And I started helping people locally, people who worked with me, research coordinators and friends of friends get into PA school. And I'm like, this is awesome and like super fun. And I was like, God, I want to be the person that I wish I had back then. Right. And a lot of things have changed since I applied. And I've been able to learn so much about the admissions process in a lot of different ways and make connections with admissions directors like Kelsey, and really help now thousands of students on their journey to becoming a PA. So I'm really glad and excited for you to be here, and hopefully you can learn from us. So with that being said, I will pass it to Kelsey, who will give a little bit of her backstory.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for having me. So my story is kind of the polar opposite of Michelle's. Um, so I found out about the PA profession when I was in high school. We had an experience-based kind of class when I was a senior in high school. Had no idea what a PA was. Ended up with a PA in orthopedics and was like, wow, this is awesome. So that really sparked my interest. So really drove me through undergrad because I was like, okay, I don't think I'm really going to utilize a whole lot of my degree necessarily. Like, I know I want to be a PA. I'm getting my degree so I can go to PA school and hopefully utilize some of that knowledge. So I chose kinesiology as my major because I was interested in orthopedics and really enjoyed like nutrition and, saw that there's certainly a need for patient education in that regard. So I graduated from the University of Kentucky with a Bachelor of Science in Education, and I graduated and 8 days later started PA school. So I was the traditional route. Went to Lincoln Memorial University in Tennessee. And so it's a 27-month program. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Met my husband there. So I'll forever be grateful for that. And been a PA now for 11 years. And when I came out of school, I chose family medicine. I really enjoyed being able to get to know my patients and kind of following them through lifespan. I really enjoyed chronic disease management, and even kind of the acute things that kind of got sprinkled in with family medicine. During that time, I was asked if I'd like to be a preceptor and thought, oh, that sounds fun. So I enjoyed really precepting students, which then really sparked my interest in education. And I took a education position at a PA program here in the Southeast. Been there for 7 years now, and then and 5 of those I have been the director of admissions for the program. So I've really enjoyed just the whole process of admissions. I love counseling applicants, and just pre-PA on best practices of trying to get into programs, and that really gives me joy. And I love to hear and see all of the success stories.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's get into the nitty gritty because I know everyone's waiting with bated breath. So, what do PA programs look for? Okay, so this is a hard question, right? Because every PA program has a different rubric on how they evaluate students. So, answering the question of what do programs want the most is impossible. So I will tell you that the programs want a combination of a strong academic background, particularly in your science courses. The average person who gets accepted to PA school has a GPA, overall GPA of a 3.5 to 3.6, a science GPA of about the same, and a BCP, sort of biology, chemistry, physics, over a 3.0. Okay. Direct patient care experience. The average person getting accepted in the last few years has had 2,000 average hours of patient care, direct patient care experience, probably 100 to 200 hours of volunteer work and service, community service, at least 40 hours of PA shadowing, 50 hours in some cases. But mostly, I feel that programs are looking for well-rounded applicants from different backgrounds of all ages and types. So you're not too young, you're not too old. It's what you bring to the table as a package. Would you agree with that, Kelsey?
Absolutely. There's no one size fits all, and I mean, you hit the nail on the head with all of those.
Yeah. I think it's just, a combination. Now, you may not be as strong in one area as you are in the other, and that's okay. So, to me, I always tell people, and this is one of the things I teach my students in the admissions accelerator, is that those core four things are going to be your GPA, your patient care hours, your volunteer work, and your shadowing. And you have to have those things to be able to apply to PA school. Most PA programs have a GPA cutoff of 3.0. There are some out there that have a 275. That means if your GPA is not a 3.0 and you apply to that program with a 2.9, it will not be looked at. Okay. So I get that question a lot too. And so make sure you are over the minimum of what they are looking for. And that goes for hours as well. Okay. So the PA school application process is crazy, right? We can all agree with that. It's complicated. It's what do I do? There's so many things. I don't know what to prioritize. You have prerequisites, shadowing, standardized tests, your personal statement. So what does that really lead to? It leads to confusion. What requirements do I need? What counts as what? That happens all the time. What counts as patient care? What doesn't? Frustration, stress, time and money, late nights, Googling all of the internet to try to find your answers. You're reading one thing on Reddit, you're seeing me say another thing on Instagram, you're seeing other people say different things, and you can't decode kind of what exactly you should be doing. And so that leads to a lot of imposter system and frustration, imposter syndrome. So, what is the secret from going to this person on the left to getting that congratulations email on your right? Because most of you probably feel like this person on the left most of the time, right? So we're going to talk about that. All right. So in my personal opinion, and from what I know helping students over the years, you have to overcome these four things in order to be able to be successful in the application process and gain acceptance to PA school? Number one, you have to overcome the confusion. All right. This maze of PA school applications is going to leave you feeling lost and uncertain. You need to overcome the stress, the pressure to stand out and excel in the process, the overwhelm, the sheer volume of requirements and information that makes you feel lost, like you're drowning, like I just said, and confidence. This is probably the major one, right? Learning how to present your unique strengths and experiences, which can be very daunting. So very often you will see in different Facebook groups or on Reddit threads or wherever you are, you will see people posting their statistics. And what is the first thing you're going to do? You're going to say, I don't have that, isn't even worth it for me, right? How many times have you done that? That is something you have to shut down and you have to overcome this. So how can you do those things, right? Well, we can help you. Okay. So this is kind of what it looks like on your own. And when you work with us, particularly in the PA Admissions Accelerator, you will get personalized guidance, program selection strategy, GPA breakdown, and an academic plan. Okay. This process is super overwhelming and confusing, but we want you to save time, money, and stress. Okay. We want you to stand out amongst the crowd. So I think it's really important to think about these things as you're kind of going through this. And I'm just going to talk about these things kind of one at a time, and then I will sort of answer some questions as we go along. So overcoming stress, right? Mindset management. We teach people not only what they need to be successful applicants in terms of those core 4 things, right? All of the other things that you need to do, but we also really focus on mindset management, techniques to build your confidence, personalizing your wellness strategies, and really uncovering that deeper YPA. Okay. And I want to talk about that again for a second because I think it's important. A lot of people, what I find throughout this process is people will say to me, I don't have an aha moment. I don't have the aha moment where I decided I want to be a PA. I don't have a GPA of 3.5. I don't have, 2,000 hours. I have 1,500 hours. And instead of sort of looking at what you have now and what you're going to have moving forward, we really tend to focus on what we don't have. Okay. And so we really try to help people do, particularly, when you work with us, is uncover your strengths so that you can highlight them throughout your entire application. Okay. So when I ask people why they want to be a PA, and it's sort of like generic, like, oh, I want to be a PA because I want to help people. I want to change specialties, I want to do all those things. That's great. And like, that's a really important thing of why you want to become a PA. But think about more of what you have to offer patients and a PA program, what your strengths are. I really encourage you to write down what your strengths are. And if you don't know what your strengths are, go ahead and ask someone. Okay. That's not you. Ask your friends and family, ask your coworkers, because I'm sure they're going to tell you what your strengths are. And then you will be able to see them a little bit more. I think it's really important that you're presenting your best self confidently throughout the entire process. And when people can really identify how they want to impact people, how they want to make a change, in clinical medicine, what they want to do outside of clinical medicine, right? Kelsey's in education. I was in hospital administration for years, right? So what is it that you want to do clinically, but what do you want to do non-clinically? Do you have an aspiration to do research or open a clinic somewhere, or, go into administration or teaching or start your own business, whatever? Think about, yes, the impact you want to have on patients, but also think about the impact you want to have elsewhere. How do you feel about that, Kelsey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think that's super important and can just kind of help you as you go along your journey as a PA because, some people stay in the same area for a long time, and others, that there's again, everyone's journey is very different. If you had told me that when I graduated PA school that I would be a PA educator, and do admissions, I'd be like, "Yeah, I don't think so." But look, here I am and I love what I do and I love, contributing and giving back, I guess, to the profession in that type of manner as well.
Yeah. And that's true. And I want to reassure you that we felt the same uncertainty as you did. So, yes, we are here now, but just know that the people watching tonight and us were in the same boat, at some point. Okay. So overcoming overwhelm. Now, this is where I really feel like we can help you in terms of making a strategic timeline that is specific to you. Okay. So I have a lot of, I have an application timeline out there that's free that you can download. But I think what is important here is that everybody's timeline looks a little different and everybody's focus on what they should be doing next is different. So I can't just say everybody should be doing this right now. Everybody should be doing this right now. That's a very personal decision with every single applicant, right? So how can give you that clear checklist and the timeline that works for you, and you have access to admissions experts and people like Kelsey who have been through this before. You need to be, I will tell you this, what you do need to be is clear, organized, and make sure that you're not getting lost in the sea of requirements. So I want to take a second just to think about this because I feel like the two things that really overwhelm people are how to pick programs and, well, how to pick programs and how many to apply to, number one. And two, what to focus on the most. So I will say when it comes to what to focus on, if you are somebody that has a GPA that is less than 3.5, but is, maybe 3.1, 3.2. Okay. What I think you need to look at on your application is, do you have any C's in your prerequisites? And do you have an upward trend? And if you take additional classes, will that bump your GPA? That would be the first thing I would think about. All right. That even applies to people who have a 3.0 or a 2.9. Okay. So if you're a lower GPA applicant, which lower GPA applicant to me is anything from a 2.9 to a 3.2. Okay. Because some programs now are increasing their GPA cutoffs to 3.2. So 2.9 to 3.2. First thing, look at your prerequisites. Programs, I can tell you right now, in 2024, I did not have one person get accepted who has C in their prereqs. So programs do not want to see C's in prereqs right now. So I think that's number one. Some programs are even moving to B- or B or better. So I've seen that as well. So really look at that. That is the first thing I would do. Look at your prereqs, and if you have C's in them, I would retake them. And the second thing I would do is look at what your GPA is. So what your GPA is, and if you are taking these classes, put them in a GPA calculator, pretend like you got all A's, and project what your GPA would be. Okay? Because that's going to look different, depending on what classes you need to take and retake. Now, when you retake a class, those grades get averaged together in CASPA. Some PA programs will do a grade replacement, but in the CASPA application itself, it all gets averaged together. All right. So you have to think about that as well. So that's why I always recommend going to it. So CASPA has its own GPA calculator in the help center of their website. You can enter in all your grades and you can see where you're at. Okay. And then you can enter things that you didn't even take and see how far you'd get. Right. And then from there, I think after you do that, you have to think about, okay, what do I need to do to increase this? And do I need to do additional coursework, post-bac masters? That's going to look different for a lot of people. And that's where we can really get granular and say, this is what's going to be better for you. And that's how we can really kind of navigate that. If you're somebody that has a good GPA, right? Then I would be, if your GPA is good, then here's what I would be focusing on: making sure you have good hours, recent volunteer work, getting that PA shadowing. PA shadowing is always an issue for a lot of people. It's not that easy to get, and we'll touch on that. I know we'll have questions on that. And so I would be focusing then on your patient hours, getting those other things in order. How do you feel about the GPAs, Kelsey? Does that kind of resonate with what you've seen?
Just in regards to, the higher the better, of course.
Yeah.
But certainly if you're, lower, yes, admissions committees love to see that you're retaking classes, you have an upward trend, because a lot of people just have, a tough, first year of college, and then they kind of start to get in the groove of it. And yep, there are many programs that aren't accepting, C's anymore. It's B minus or even B or higher. I will say there are some programs that do offer like last 60 reviews.
Yes. Yep.
So if you don't meet their minimum, you can, lots of times you can request that, but that's very program dependent. But again, you'd still want to, take more courses and or retake courses, so that way that GPA comes up and your like science and prerequisite GPA comes up as well.
That's true. So, and that's where program selection, y'all, is really important. So every single person I work with, whether it's in admissions accelerator or not, the very first thing I tell them to do is make a program list and reverse engineer your application. Because if you start trying to be everything for everybody and apply to 40 programs, it's not going to work. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people who have applied to 40 programs, not gotten in. We apply to like 10 and it happens. Or I've worked with people who have applied to 2 programs, and why does that work? Because you're very intentional about what you're doing for that program. And so you're not trying to take a million prereqs. You guys have seen this, right? Some schools require this, some schools require that. So I highly encourage you to look at programs first. Okay. Figure out, where you want to be in the country, and start looking at them. And if you start seeing one that has 15 prerequisites and you don't have half of those, it's not on the list. If you know what I'm saying? So you can figure out, okay, these are the programs I want to take. What am I missing? And will I be the right applicant for them? Okay. Not for everyone, for them. So you want to be looking at their average GPA that gets accepted. Some programs have a 3.2 average GPA that have been accepted. Typically that's on their website. Sometimes it's not, but typically it is. You want to be looking at their average hours. You may not hit all of those boxes, but you will hit some, and you will be more intentional because you'll be like, okay, these are my programs. I have everything I need for these. Not try to be everything for everyone. My recommendation is 10 programs, 15 max. Okay. It gets very expensive. You start writing a million secondary essays, and it just is a lot of time. So I would be more intentional. And if you are somebody with a lower GPA, yes, you need to be looking at programs that are going to value your last 60 credits, period, especially if you have an upward trend. Okay. So, and there are a lot of programs that do that. And so I would say, find those and then see what you need, to be an applicant for them. And that's the best way to sort of reduce the overwhelm, is to have that strategy of, okay, here's how this is the programs I'm looking at. This is what I need. And then we will help you be the best applicant you can be. And we will even go over, I'll be like, sometimes I tell people to take programs off the list or add a program to the list that they didn't know about. Okay. So I think it's really important to think about that. And that really takes the overwhelm process, the overwhelm of this out a little bit. Confidence, look, communicating your strengths effectively in your experience descriptions, in your personal statement, in your supplementals, in your interviews is what is going to make you stand out from the crowd, not something that's very specific in terms of hours or GPA or anything like that. Okay? If you can harness your superhero and be able to articulate what makes you unique and your strengths, you will be successful in this process period because you will stand out. You will stand out in an interview. Someone's going to read your essay and remember it. They're going to read it and want to meet you, So I think it's really important. I feel like this is really where my team shines in essay reviews. And this is my favorite, as well. I can't tell you how many people say to me, there's nothing unique about me. And I'm like, that's just not true. We all have something. And the reason why, we really like to do our personal statement reviews and our essay reviews live is because very oftentimes we will get on a call and the essay's written about one thing and we start talking about another thing. And I'm like, why is that not in here? Right? Like, that's what we should be talking about here. This is what your strengths are. How important is your personal statement? I think it's pretty damn important. I think it is a very important essay in terms of really conveying to a committee who you are as a person, what kind of person you want to be, what kind of PA you want to be. And when someone is reading that, they may be thinking like, wow, I want to be colleagues with this person, right? So I think that essay is important. I think the new life experience essay is important. I think it's a really nice way to convey a different life experience that you couldn't talk about maybe in your personal statement. And definitely supplementals, if they are program specific, are important. What do you say about that, Kelsey?
Yes, all of that's true. I've read thousands of personal statements, and you get a spectrum, and there's definitely those ones that stand out and you'll remember or kind of grab your attention. And it gives the committee an insight to who you are. And then hopefully you get invited for an interview, and then there's an extra time for you to shine, and for us to actually meet you and dive a little bit deeper into that. But yes, personal statements, super important. The supplementals, very important. And the life experience one, those are interesting because sometimes a lot of people like to put a bunch of kind of random life experiences within that personal statement. And so, you may want to touch on it in your personal statement, but utilize that to kind of go deeper. In that specific area. And so that's
That
always
actually happened to me
nice to
today. I
see.
was doing an essay review with somebody
Mhm.
today, and I'm like, she's like, "Can I write about this in my life?" I said, "You absolutely should." We said 3 sentences about this. There's a whole other, background about it. And that essay was new this past cycle, and it's really about life experiences that will help you relate to the population of the country. This is not about why you want to be a PA. And so I think that's a really cool thing. How important, so what would you say interviewers are once, I guess not interviewers, once the person you've seen the application, they get to the interview, they interview, and then that decision-making process after that includes their initial screen, right? Like their initial, and so they're basically scored. So explain how that sort of works as well.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, it's different for every program, but so you generally have some sort of scoring matrix and pre-screen scoring. So, again, we're looking at those big four. So GPA, paid healthcare hours, volunteerism, and shadowing. And then, so that's, they're looking at your personal statement. They're looking at, your extracurriculars, your, other involvement. Um, and then that gives you essentially a pre-score. And then hopefully you're invited for an interview. You come for an interview, and then there's portions of that are scored generally by multiple faculty members, or, PAs, or whomever is on um, either the committee, or they've had come in to do the interviews. And then a lot of times they put those together, and sometimes it depends, but sometimes the pre-screen is weighted a little bit more than the interview, or vice versa, or maybe they're 50-50. But generally they come together in some weighted fashion, and you get a score, and then it goes down the list, and the top people get invited for an acceptance.
Yeah. And I think that's really important for people to understand. I think some people are like, well, this is, they don't know how every program is doing it. And every program's rubric is different. And sometimes you can find it on their website, by the way. Sometimes you can find what they're looking for. Specifically, I'm in the process of updating the applicant's manual for PA programs for next year. And I've been on a lot of PA program websites, and you can find this information. So, if they have a section on their website that talks about what their admissions process looks like, it may give you that rubric. So really important when you're looking at programs to kind of look at that as well, because you can kind of see what's important, for them in the process. So that's great information. So this is my acceptance letter to PA school. I don't live here anymore, so it's fine. You can see that. But remember that this is not a journey that you're alone in, and very much feels like that a lot of the time. But if I can get into the Yale PA program, you guys can do anything. I am completely in agreement with that. So what is the PA School Admissions Accelerator? You've heard me talking about it on social media. You've heard me saying all the things. This is sort of the highest level of support you can get throughout this process. Okay. So we start January 20th. You get an access to, basically it's an on-demand video library that has videos on how to do every single step of the application process from start to finish. You get a one-on-one Zoom call as an intro call. But if you do the VIP option, you also get a personal statement review, a CASPA review, supplementals reviewed via email, bi-weekly group calls, via Zoom. Monthly, sorry, I should say monthly, bi-monthly group calls via Zoom. You get the application timeline, you get checklists, and you really get that community. We have a private group that's no longer on Facebook. It's on a different app now, where you can ask questions, learn from each other. The group calls are amazing because we're always learning from each other in those experiences. And this, to me, is like having an admissions expert in your back pocket the whole time. Like, you have somebody to ask a question at any moment in time. And like, for me, I was doing this alone back in the day. I would have paid any money, to have that happen, because I was so confused and trying to figure it out on my own. And so, the other thing that this does is, because you have that guidance, because you have the strategy, it will save you time, it will save you money, and it will save you stress. And so I want to encourage you to take a look at that, or any of the other packages that we can help you with, because we really do want to see you succeed, in this process. These are some success stories from last year and the year before. A lot of non-traditional applicants, a lot of re-applicants, a lot of just out of college applicants. And so I have just been blessed to be able to help all of these people gain admission into PA school and continue to be part of their journey as they move on. Nothing makes me happier than seeing their posts. But it's been really great. Okay. So because you're here today for the next 48 hours, if you are interested in doing the accelerator, you can scan this QR code. It will take you to the website, or it should, and you will get $50 off the VIP accelerator one-time payment. option. If cost is prohibitive for you in one way or another, shoot me an email, send me a DM. There are payment plan options available for this. And so I want to make sure that you understand what you're getting in this package. And if you have any questions around that. So on this website, you will see a list of every single thing that you get when you sign up so that there's no confusion at all. So now we get to the more fun part of this, which is answering all y'all's questions. So we go ahead and start dropping your questions. Hold on. I'm going to put that back up for a second. So if you scan the code, is a scribe direct patient care hours? For most programs, yes. What would you say, Kelsey?
I would say it's dependent. I would say that a lot of them accept them as patient hours, but they may not be weighted as high.
Yes.
So a lot of programs will what we call weight their direct paid healthcare hours. So based on quantity, so well, how many hours do you actually have, but also quality of was this really a hands-on, did you get an extra certification, and so those types are weighted higher than those who may not have direct hands-on. So it depends. A great thing to do is to look at your programs, check their website. A lot of them have like commonly asked questions section, and a lot of times that is under there and under their requirements. A lot of times they'll give examples of what is acceptable and what is not. If it is not clear, reach out to their admissions department director, and say, hey, I don't say hey, please address them appropriately. Please address them appropriately. But just, hey, I've researched on the website, I was trying to I wanted to clarify if a scribe is considered direct paid healthcare hours for your program.
Yeah. And I will say this, there are a couple of things that fall into gray area categories. And scribe is one of them. Most programs will accept it. Just check with them. And I will say this too, you have one place to list this on your application. And so what I want to make sure you understand is that list it as patient care hours and let the programs decide. When you do it in CASPA, you have the option of choosing healthcare or patient care. I would choose patient care, and they can decide. Your personal statement, how long should it be? It's 5,000 characters with spaces, no more, sometimes less. How can I verify a PA program is accredited? It's on their website. It should be direct.
Yes.
Yeah, on their website.
That is an ARC-PA requirement that all programs have to readily publish their accreditation status. If for some reason you can't find it, because sometimes that happens when website updates, you can always go to ARC-PA, and there's a list of programs, and it will tell you. You can click on it. It'll tell you their accreditation. You can actually even look up like their accreditation history of, were they on probation? Did they get off probation? You can look up what they were cited for and those type of things.
Yes. So make sure that you see that. And you can always go to the ARC-PA website if you need to as well. How does financial aid work? Typically, if you apply to PA schools in 2025, should you fill out FAFSA? Yes, you should get started on that. I would say this. There are not a lot of scholarships out there. AAPA typically has a list of scholarships. They're smaller scholarships, none that are going to cover your costs other than the National Health Scholar program, which is you have to apply to and be accepted. And they will cover your tuition and all of that. And then you have to give back a certain amount of hours in practice to certain communities. So you can take a look at that as well. You always want to maximize your federal loans before you do a private loan. So just make sure of that as well. I'm not a financial person, but that I know. Will your NP shadowing hours count as shadowing hours? No, like yes and no. You need a PA. You can put them in your application for sure, but you need to shadow a PA. And okay, if you're a second semester junior, it is now the time to register for the accelerator. If you plan, it depends when you plan to apply. If you don't plan to take a gap year, then yes, and you might want to wait till the fall cohort, but it just depends on your timing. So just reach out to me personally about that and we can go over it. Okay, here's a good one. I'm applying right now. I have a 3.6 GPA. I have a C in one of my prereqs. Should I retake? What would you say, Kelsey? Yes.
I would say yes.
I would say yes. Yeah, which stinks. Which stinks, but I would say yes. Our volunteer tier experiences on CASPA strictly meant to be non-healthcare? No, they can be either. They can be healthcare or non-healthcare. So you just need volunteer experience. Most people will ask, do they have to be healthcare? The answer is no. It literally can be anything. So there's that. For Yale, did you do the reverse engineer technique? Yes, I did that for all of my programs because there were so many. And I was like, I don't know what's what. And they all had different requirements. And I was going back to school to take anatomy and physiology. And so I had to take psychology, which I had never taken in college, and like do all of that. So I definitely picked programs that I had the prereqs for and I had the hours for because I was a lower hours applicant. And so there was that. I applied to 10 programs. So if you're in college, when do you normally apply? Okay, so that's where this whole gap year situation happens. If you don't want to take any time off, right? And you want to graduate in May and start your PA program in the fall, you have to apply in the spring of your junior year. Okay? It's a year-long process. So right before you go into your senior year, so that you then go in your senior year, you graduate, you start. Okay? That has no gap year involved, and you cannot apply to January start programs, okay, which there's not a ton, but you can. If you need patient care hours, if you need whatever, and you need to take a gap year, then you wait, till your senior year or after that. Reapplying this year, my biggest weakness is GPA 3.3. I have C's, 3 C's. Should I retake all of them or at least one since time is running kind of thin? I would retake them. Yes. And the other thing is you want the grades to count in your application. Mm-hmm. So you kind of want to have them all done before you apply. I think in best case scenario for applying this year, at least try to take 1 or 2 and get them done before you submit. All right. Chelsea's asking, how would you approach it asking us to shadow a PA? What would you say, Kelsey?
If you know one, great. That's great. Networking, trying to find a PA to shadow can be difficult, but it depends on your relationship with the PA that you're trying to shadow. If it's, someone that I know someone who knows someone who knows someone, you may kind of want to go through that mutual person and just find out if they are willing to have anyone shadow, and then you could potentially get their contact information. I would ask, what is their preferred contact? Because, some people don't like to talk on the phone or have more limited time, so they prefer text message or email. And, you may just want to introduce yourself. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm looking to go to PA school. I would love the opportunity to shadow if you allow that or are willing, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. I have something called the PrePA vault that you get access to when you join the accelerator. You automatically get access, or you can purchase it separately if you're not doing that, where it has email templates for all of this. How to ask somebody to shadow, how to contact a program in a professional way. Okay. How to thank somebody after shadowing, how to thank an interview, like all of it. So if you're part of the accelerator, you get that automatically. And if you're not and you want the link to just have access to it, it's like $15. Let me know. I'll send it to you. Okay. Is having research valued in admissions, or is it better to focus on patient care hours? I think research is valued. Actually, most of my experience was research, but your patient care hours are probably paramount. So research is great and it only improves your application, but you need patient care hours. So I would focus there if you can. Same for, is paid PCE better? Oh, is paid PCE weighted better than volunteer? It depends on the program, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I would say patient care experience is probably going to be higher than volunteerism,
Mhm.
um, just because of the
Yeah,
profession itself.
yeah, I agree. All right, I have a 3.3 and I was a college athlete, so I was juggling a lot. What would you suggest be your next step? So, as I said before, look at your grades, season any prereqs, retake those. If not, you might want to consider doing additional coursework in some way. You're working as a PCT, you're gaining your hours, so just make sure you're doing that in terms of, um, making your application more robust. Do you need to do a post-bac program? No, so I would say go ahead and maybe take some additional science coursework that could help. How do programs verify patient care hours, volunteer shadowing hours? So in my experience, they don't verify volunteer and shadowing hours, but there are some programs out there that definitely verify patient care hours. So they usually do that via pay stubs or having somebody that you worked with fill out a form that you did all the hours there. I just had somebody have this issue who got in, and the person that she worked with before is no longer there, and then it's just been like a thing, but there's a form that they have to sign, so that's typically how they do it. So keep your pay stubs. um okay, would you explain a low GPA in your personal statement or focus on only patient care experience in me? I think this is a very personal situation. If the elephant in the room on your application is your low GPA, then you should address it, but don't spend too much time there. Okay. I like to say, get in and get out. Say what happened, but say a little bit about, like, maybe how you struggled, but what have you done since then? And reassure me you're not going to fail out of PA school. Like, that's what I would want to see. If I'm reading somebody who's reading an applicant's personal statement with a GPA of 3.0, I would want to know what they've done since then. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what have you done? Like a very brief description, kind of what happened. Take responsibility for it, own it, and then yes, what have you done since then to yes, hopefully ease. Okay,
Yeah.
we think that you can do this program.
Yeah. So I would if it's that low. How do you decipher what level of sciences are required in prereqs? They usually tell you directly on their website. Like, they'll
Mhm.
say upper level science, which is like usually 200 and above, on there. Um, what do valuable volunteer experiences look like? I have most of my hours from volunteering at a local animal shelter. Great. That's totally fine. I think that's great. So I think that is valuable. I'm going to wait on the group interview question, but I will answer it because this one is very much a very common question, which is, what is the difference between healthcare and patient care experience? Patient care experience means you are touching patients in some way or another. So you are involved in their clinical care in some way. Okay. So patient care techs, which is what I did, but I was certified as a CNA, medical assistants, EMTs, paramedics, physical therapy aides, all of that stuff counts as hands on. You are hands on. What counts as healthcare experience is more administrative work, working the front desk, billing, filing, transport, patient transport. That's all healthcare experience. So if you're in the healthcare arena, but you're not dealing with patients, that's healthcare. So that's kind of how I look at it. And they have descriptions on CASPA as well. Um, mental health aid is not the same as a CNA and a PCT. So you would have to be very specific about what you were doing with those patients. If that would count, if that would be more of like a home health aid. And then I work under a doctor currently. However, I work closely with the PA. Could I count that as PA shadowing, or do I just mend that? Okay, so you can't double dip. This is why I want to answer this question.
Mhm.
So you cannot work with a PA. You cannot use work hours as shadowing hours. That's called double dipping. Okay. So if you want to say that you shadowed this person, you either have to do it outside of your clinical hours, or you have to take those hours out of your clinical hours. You can't list them twice. So I hope that answered that question. All right, group interviews. What are the most common types of questions asked? Group interviews can be anything. It could be an activity. It could be an ethical scenario you have to decode. It could just be traditional interview questions. So it's really hard to say like what that would be. What would you say, Kelsey?
I would say a lot of programs use, MMI style, like multiple kind of mini interviews, and they kind of break it up into those different sections. Okay, let's ask you the traditional things like, why did you choose our school, to apply to? They could ask you behavioral type questions like, tell me about a time where you experienced conflict. How did you handle that situation? Is there anything in hindsight that you think you would do differently in the future? It could be certainly an activity, like Michelle mentioned, something ethical or kind of moral, or even something kind of controversial, because sometimes we're looking at a little bit of the soft skills kind of mixed within these types of questions for specific answers.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We're at our hour, so I'll answer one or two more and then we got to wrap it up. But I'm seeing a theme of that working and shadowing. So hopefully that made sense to you. A lot of questions about that. You can't work and shadow. So you can't count those hours as clinical work and shadowing. You have to separate them out in some way. And then for non-traditional applicants, if you are taking courses that are expired, you can certainly your science course is expired, so you have to retake all of them. So that's, programs are going to know that. And then there was one other one that I saw. Somebody said I'm a non-traditional applicant. Where did it go? There we go. I've been taking my science prereqs at multiple colleges post-grad. Do admissions look down on taking prereqs at multiple schools? No, because you kind of some schools don't offer them. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's better if you can take them all at one. Another question asked a lot is if you take them at community college, does that look worse? I'll tell you this, you got to do what you got to do. Okay. Like does it look better if you take them at a four-year university? Yes. But you know what? That's not always possible. That's not always an option. And so you have to do what you have to do. So I've had many applicants take some classes at community college and get it. So I would think about it that way as well. So, and then going back to double dipping, what if I shadowed a PA, enjoyed the work, then started working there? That's separate. Yes, that is separate. Do you need to get a provider's signature that you're shadowing? I would, just in case, but probably don't have to. If you have a master's, that will scrunch into your overall GPA. So it will bring that up, but it will also separate out in CASPA. And if you have a master's, a lot of programs will give you additional weight because you have a master's degree. So yeah. All right. I think that's most of it. I think we took care of most of this. If I didn't answer your questions, you can always shoot me a message on Instagram or send me an email at theposhpa@michellenesky.com. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions. But thank you guys for being here and staying on the whole time. And for those of you watching the recording, thank you so much. Kelsey, thank you for taking the time tonight. I really appreciate you being here. I'm so excited that you're part of our team. And I can't wait to see what happens this cycle. So, bye guys. See you soon.